Welcome to another episode of Absolutely Fabulous. It's episode 25, and we're talking about demystifying Australian politics, what you need to know what you need to know ahead of the election. And topic 2 is the Albanese government censorship in the education system for WA. Why the Keep the Sheep movement was cancelled, but RSPCA and PETA escaped unscathed. Our opinions to come shortly.
Hi, welcome to Absolutely Fabulous. My name is Gillian Fennell, also known as Station Mum 101. I love everything about agriculture, especially the people and especially communicating about what makes Australian ag so special.
And I'm Katja Williams, a beef, cattle and cropping farmer, and I love all things ag, and I'm also known as the ultimate farm wife. Together, we are absolutely fabulous, and we are talking all things agriculture beyond the headlines.
And we can't wait to give our opinion to you, and we hope you enjoy it.
So let's get into today's episode.
Let's start with some chit chat. Gillian, you're down on the farm. So what's been happening this week?
Well, I've been over to Western Australia to go and speak about succession at the Western Australian Lot Feeders Association conference, which was a lovely time, and we're always honoured to be asked to speak at these types of events, and I had a great time. Very lightning trip to WA. It's a lovely place except for their airport. Their airport needs destroying and starting again. It was the most confusing experience I've ever had air travelling and trying to return a rental car, honest to God. And then while I was away, we had 50 mils of rain, so we can't go home. We're meant to be taking the truck home, and obviously it won't make it in. So put the truck back at the mechanics to get a few more things done, so we'll pick it up next time. But supposed to be going home tomorrow. Fingers crossed we won't do too much damage to the road. And what have you been up to, Katja? Any rain at your place?
Yes, we had 20 mil at one place and nearly 40 at the other. So that pushed back sowing. So we are now, it meant Ned could get in the car with me this weekend, and we were able to make a good friend's wedding, and we were able to make my sister's baby shower, which was just really great. Really glad that we could get away and do that. So thank you, rain, for coming when it did. And now Ned's in the tractor and I'm sitting here talking to you.
That's so great. I see a map that's predicting flooding through the entire centre of Queensland, Northern Territory, and the top end of New South Wales, and coming in the top end of South Australia due to rivers flooding. So fingers crossed everyone gets a nice big drink and it doesn't cause too much disruption. But yeah, it's good to see the rain around.
That would be a happy balance. We'd enjoy that balance. So, Gillian, the first topic came through from a question that has been sent in. So the question is, hi, Gillian, could you help me understand Australian politics? I've only just realised that most of the content I consume, like Netflix and social media, is US-based. You've mentioned on the podcast that the American politics system is different from the Australian one. Especially with the upcoming election, I'd love to learn more about how our system actually works and the different political parties.
Oh, I will say up front, I don't have any particular qualifications or anything to comment on this, and there are better political commentators out there. Some of the best, like Anthony Green, who's now retired, but if you look him up, he's written some really good articles and stuff about how politics actually works, and is really unbiased. So American politics and the system that they have is probably one of the most convoluted and confusing systems I've ever encountered. So luckily for us, Australia is not quite so complex, but when you start to think about preferences and those sorts of things, it gets really tricky. My biggest tip to you is to, if you're interested, like everyone, it's compulsory to vote if you're registered to vote and you're over 18. So do that if you want to actually have a say, because if you choose not to participate, you forfeit your right to complain. Go and research all the different political parties and all the different independents, because there are quite a few now, and read their policies and their constitution, most of which should be on their website, because that will tell you what the party is actually about. So when they do things that, for example, nationals in their in their constitution are very strong on a traditional family unit, and they have a lot of God talk in there. So when they make decisions that align with those sorts of values, you shouldn't actually be surprised. Learn as much as you can about different political parties and what their actual values and goals are, and their policies. Policies often, and we're seeing this now, it's not even election. The election hasn't even been called, and people are making commitments and promises about what they're going to do. So they are politicians, so take all that with a grain of salt, but it gives you an indication about what their intentions might be. And often you'll find with politicians and political parties, they will make big grand promises, but then when they actually get into power, they don't do it because, oh, you know, we don't have the budget, or, you know, something else has happened and it's far more important. So just bear in mind that people will promise you anything to get their vote. That doesn't necessarily mean that they will actually deliver. And I'm looking at you, Labor Party, when it's talking about raising the rate for those people who are on government assistance payments. And the CPI payment increases that they made don't actually count because that happens anyway. So yeah, educate yourself, read as much as you can, and read it off their own website, because then you won't get the political type spin, because again, it's politics. One side will be telling you the other side is terrible, and vice versa. So don't pay too much attention to that. Don't pay too much attention to what you read on social media. Go and read the proper press releases, read what's on their website. It will tell you exactly what they're about. And yeah, and take everything you read on social media and in the news with a grain of salt, because there's a lot of ways things can be reported that aren't actually accurate and don't actually reflect the intent. But it's, everything is spin. Go to their website, read directly, and be careful when you vote, because you might inadvertently vote for something that's not going to be really good for you or good for all the nation. I hope that helps. Yeah. I can't tell you about the mechanics of how it actually works and how preferences work, because I find that very confusing. I don't agree with preferences. I think they're a nonsense. But someone a long time ago decided that it was a great idea to balance out our voting system, and that's what the system we've got. But yeah, just read as much as you can from the source. Don't let other people influence you, and make the decision that's best for you and what you think will be best for Australia.
Absolutely. So for someone who might be looking at registering to vote, they're a young audience who hasn't had much to do with politics at the moment. So Gillian, is it right in saying that we have two major parties?
Yeah, we have the two major parties. So we've got Liberals and Nationals, but the Liberals have made a coalition in many states and sometimes on a federal level, and they call themselves the LNP, the Liberal National Party. And they are what we call the Conservatives. So they are what you would see as traditional family structures. They really like God, some of them, which is cool. If you want to like God, that's your business. But I don't think God has much of a place in running a country. But because, you know, I don't know if he's got much experience with actual government stuff, so maybe leave God out of policy making. And that's sort of who they appeal to. A lot of them are, they really chase that big business, that top end of town. They like to align themselves with mining companies and big corporate executives and all those sorts of things. Labor likes to align themselves with the working people, with working class people, heavily backed by the unions. Given some of the stuff that's come out about unions recently, I don't know if I'd be wanting to associate myself with unions. Some pretty wretched things have been happening there, but that's essentially how Labor Party got started anyway, which was through the shearers strike and the shearers movement in Blackall? Yeah, Blackall, I think. Oh, Barcaldine. I used to live in Queensland and my granddad was a shearer, so how embarrassing is that? But yeah, but now they're also heavily aligned because they need the Greens preferences votes to get elected, so they're becoming very involved in environmental matters. And because they have that sort of unionist and some may say socialist views, their intentions on protecting the environment usually involve obtaining other people's land and locking it up for conservation purposes, which I don't really agree with, and make a lot of big promises again about things that they then walk back on, because that's what politicians do. yeah. Oh, and then you've got the Greens, and then you've got the minor parties. So the Animal Justice Party, I don't think we need to talk about them, give them any airtime.
Nope.
You've got the Trumpet of Patriots, which is probably one of the most ludicrous things I think I've seen in a long time. That's Clive Palmer and Ralph Babbitt. If you've seen those two gentlemen around, probably not to give you. Don't be fooled by their rhetoric about we're for patriots, we're for Australia, we're for all this. They are for getting themselves elected. That is for all they are for. And they have no power to do anything because there's the two of them and only one of them's actually a senator at the moment. So it's just all about them. Don't believe a word they say would be my advice to you, because a lot of minor parties are like that. Then you've got the Legalised Marijuana Party, One Nation. Again, Pauline's been around for a long time. I'm sure everyone knows Pauline Hanson's stand on a lot of things. A lot of people may agree with her. But think about when you're giving your vote, because this is what you're doing. You're giving your vote to people who can actually make a difference. So will one person make a difference when it comes to setting a policy agenda that will actually benefit you and the rest of Australia? So it might seem really cool and fun to give your vote to an independent. And if you are in an electorate where the independent might poll really highly, you can make a difference for your electorate. You can do those things and you vote what's best for you. But when you start giving away your preferences and those sorts of things, just be really careful, because we don't want to end up in a situation where we have a sort of a conglomeration of rabble in the parliament and we can't get anything done. But also, that said, the major parties aren't really doing anything either. So it's a really interesting time. Actually, I think this next federal election is going to be a very interesting one to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So in summary, a quick Google search of the major parties will let you know what they're up to and what they stand for and the promises that they are making going into the election. So read those, make a decision yourself on who you're going to give your vote to. I hope that clarified your question. Thank you so much for writing in and giving us topic 1 to discuss. Remember, guys, you can send through your topics, articles, and reels as well for discussion. And now we will head into Q&A. So, Gillian, that takes us to the mid of our episode. And this part of the episode is sponsored by Farm Table. So thank you, Farm Table. Farm Table now hosts our podcast page, our landing page. So I will add that in the show notes below for you all to check out. But welcome to Farm Table. Farm Table is a proud independent Australian agricultural knowledge platform, bringing together the most relevant and curated agricultural resources from around the globe. More than that, Farm Table supports industry collaboration, peer-to-peer networking, and functions to build the capacity of individuals and organisations across the entire Australian ag supply chain. With over 3,000 resources, the latest agricultural events, funding opportunities, grants, micro courses and workshops, all in one location, Farm Table makes it easier to find the information you need. Beautiful. So our first question for this section is, Katja and Gillian, I know you're both pro succession planning and its importance. Do you think the farmers chosen by the production team for Farmer Wants a Wife should undergo a selection criteria that makes sure that the farm has a solid succession plan before they go forward with any more seasons?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because that's a type of abuse, quite frankly, to bring someone into an enterprise, like to make their home unstable, like that's, and we all know how a lot of these scenarios work when you go onto farm and you cease your outside employment to be a parent or to assist on the farm. Like, yeah, don't. And I think that's sort of the due diligence and the responsibility that the production company has. And that's not to say, like, succession plans change and evolve as circumstances change and evolve, and they shouldn't just be set and forget, because otherwise they're not fit for purpose anymore. But when they are scoping out who is going to be on the TV, I think they have a responsibility to those participants to make sure that they have a succession plan in place. and the flexibility to, in case they do find their forever partner during the show, to ensure that the participants' families they're willing to undertake another round to make sure everyone's needs are met, or at least be open and upfront about how things are going to work. Because that's, for a lot of people, like that should be a deal breaker. If you can't have guarantee of I don't know, at least your home security, then you really need to consider whether that's the best way forward to make their life for you and potentially your children in the future. And it's not about, oh, will I definitely get my hands on the asset? It's like, okay, so for the next 10 years, can I be assured that I will have a job that pays me a living wage and a secure place to live? So you can make plans. So, and that you have that commitment that if things change, you will be advised as quickly as possible so you can make plans. And not doing that, I think, is really not on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the farm needs to be protected with their succession plan. But I also was listening back to our episode to make sure it went live and there was no glitches with Ned in the car with me down to the baby shower. And when he was listening along, and one of his comments was, I hope the farm is also protected. Like, this show is dropping complete strangers into someone else's business. And I hope the farm is also protected and that the contestants are vetted, that they're not going to come in, stay, the 6 to 12 months and then try and take, I'm going to do inverted commas for those who aren't watching the video podcast on YouTube, take what's theirs. So that they're not going to come in, they're not going to live there for 12 months and then try and take part of the farm and the assets. So they also need to be protected. So I really hope that there's some sort of legislation or paperwork in there that protects both the farmers as well as these girls going into this situation, so that they're all have security and they will have, their own separate asset and finances initially, if it is their forever love, and they stay on farm and they get involved in the family farming business, integrate into it, then that's fantastic. And even some of the farmers who have previously been on the show who have then left the farm to be with their partners for a bit, I really hope there's a successful integration back into the family farm when they're both ready, because that's usually the younger farmers who do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't think that you should be participating in something like this, because it does have that high public profile, if you don't have the correct, proper business structures in place to ensure that the business entity can continue past this. Because realistically, if this is just a bit of fun or something goes tits up, you don't want to destroy an entire family business over it. So they should, I don't know if they do check that, but they definitely should check that. And if you're considering being on any sort of show or any sort of involved in any sort of scheme or anything that could put your family enterprise at risk, again, that's something you have to get agreement from the entire family on, because it's not just all about you. It's about that farm business. It's about all the other people who live and work there. It's about the on-farm siblings, the off-farm siblings. Yeah, so it's a lot of consideration to make.
Yeah. We've covered a lot, even in 2 episodes on this, even before it's even aired. So I hope people are appreciating how complex this show is now.
But most of the things that we're questioning, we'll probably never get answers to, because it's all about the big romance and the love story. So we'll have to start asking questions when they have the Q&A sessions on Instagram and stuff. We'll have to start asking them all these complex questions to see if they get an answer.
Alrighty, and we do have an Ag Fab of the week. So the Ag Fab of the week is Bridget from Homestead Road AU. She left us a beautiful review over on the socials. So I love listening to this podcast. Thank you. I feel so seen, so heard, and everything you ladies talk about resonates. Keep up the great work. So thank you very much. You are our Ag Fab of the week.
Thank you, Bridget. We so appreciate the feedback that we get, because it's just it. And like, this is part of the thing why we do this. It's not just, we're not doing this to like promote ourselves and to big note our crack and those sorts of things. It's so that we have a space where if people want to communicate things that they can't do in their own lives for whatever reason, because we all live in these little rural communities, we all live and work with, not all, but a lot of us live and work with family, to provide a place where we can have these conversations and raise these topics, and that can be shared and get some understanding and maybe some solutions around some of these sticky problems. So we do appreciate the feedback. We love it. Thank you, guys. Fabulous news. The beautiful people at BookBox would like to offer our listeners a discount of 15% using the code Fabulous15 for one-time purchases, excluding subscriptions. So jump on there, buy yourself a book, use it for Christmas shopping, use it for Mother's Day shopping, and get a massive discount while you're going.
BookBox, as you may have known, has previously been mentioned on the podcast, particularly when we were talking about self-care and what you can do to look after yourself. BookBox is a curated escape. It is indulgence in literature, and it's crafted specifically for you. How it works is log on to their website, take their short quiz, which is all about what you like to do when you read, but also what types of books you enjoy. Purchase your book box by using the discount code that Gillian has just mentioned, and enjoy. Once you receive your books box, make sure you take a photo and send it into the podcast, either by the socials, which Gillian will get, or through to our email address, which is always in the show notes, and I will respond. We look forward to sharing these, and we'll talk to you all soon. Now back into today's episode.
You make it worthwhile.
Absolutely. Now let's head into topic 2. So the Albanese government placed censorship on WA education to stop them accessing the Keep the Sheep movement website, while they did not put any bans on the RSPCA or PETA. They both escaped unscathed. I know you have a lot to say on this, Gillian, so I will let you go first.
I don't think PETA should be in schools. I think if you're going to ban any sort of animal welfare or any sort of advocacy website, PETA would be right up there, because the majority of what they do and say isn't based in fact. You can't get factual information from PETA when it comes to animal agriculture, because it is all nonsense.
It's all
RSPCA, look, I'm not their biggest fan, but they do have actual fact sheets and those sorts of things, and they do serve a purpose in the community when it comes to rescuing animals in poor welfare situations and all that sort of stuff. And they have tips about how to care for your pets and all that sort of stuff. That's part of what they do. But PETA, there is absolutely zero reason. The banning the Keep the Sheep website was an interesting one, because in Northern Territory, also with my youngest, we do school there through distance ed, a lot of websites are banned or whitelisted, they're called, because they don't meet certain criteria. And it may not be the content, it may be the way that they collect and harvest data. It may be that the signature in the back end of the website doesn't match the front end. And so anything that looks sort of dodgy, they just slap a ban on it. I don't think that was the case with the Keep the Sheep website. I think, and I'm pretty sure Department of Education in WA will vehemently deny this, but I think it was purely political, because it is such a key political issue for some marginal seats in Western Australia. And I think it was an effort to restrict access to the information from there, because realistically, it's a very benign sort of, it's like anything else. It's not even as extreme. You can go to the PETA website and see some of the most horrendous things about animal abuse, which aren't Australian photos, I might add, which are from international different things, and often include things like bears being harvested for their bile and all those sorts of things that I think the majority of people would agree we don't do, for a start, and we also don't agree with those practices. But yeah, and this is the thing a lot of people have an issue with, about how much reach and control do the sitting governments of the day have over the information that our kids can access at school, and is that a way to shape their thinking or shape their opinions? So yeah, there's that element as well.
Oh, censorship. What a rough topic. I think if there is if the government feels they need to censor something, then they've done something wrong and they're trying to protect their own booties on it. So they've called for this ban, they've actioned the ban, though it's phasing out. And I think they've either realised, oh, we've done a boo-boo, or they're trying to put a Band-Aid fix on it by covering up all the information to try and get re-elected. And neither of those is a good thing. Like, either, have a backbone and say, yes, we stuffed up. How about we work on a plan to reverse the decision? Really sorry, WA farmers, and everyone else who has been impacted, which you'll probably never get from a government. Or at least, who knows if there would be a satisfactory package that they could roll out that would reverse the damage that they've already done. I thought they would have learnt from when they banned live export during, what was her name? After Kevin Rudd. What was her name?
Julie Gillard.
Julie Gillard. Why did the government not learn from that mistake? Why were they not held accountable? Because there were still farmers who never got repaid the damage that it did to their business or their communities after that decision.
Yeah, well, the industry is going to take them back to court again.
Mm.
And this isn't just a Labor, like Labor did, they were the government that brought in the ban, but the LNP, they were in power afterwards. They could have paid up.
Yeah.
So it's government in action on both sides of the house. So, but yeah, so industry is taking the current government back to court again to try and get their compensation that the courts have ruled that they are entitled to.
Yeah. Something else to think about, guys, when you're putting in your vote. But we do not want to be censored. We're not a communist country. We are not a country that has lost its free speech. And that's another reason we're able to do this podcast, is free speech in this great country that we have. Let's keep it that way. Let's not keep a government in power that is going to censor information only to help themselves out.
And there's a big difference between free speech and hate speech. Like, you're entitled to your opinion. You can say whatever you like. But when you start saying things like, well, I saw someone on Twitter the other day say something that all transsexual people are retarded fags. So please don't edit that little bit of dialogue out, because that's a direct quote from something I read. That's not my personal opinion. That's hate speech, right? Because it's not true. It's designed to denigrate people. And I've seen things like, don't spread hate and lies because you have a certain belief. It's like, I can't even think about it, because I hate a lot of things or hate a lot of people. And if I do, I hate the ocean, but it's not a person. So it's one of those things, like, I think we need less hate in the world. You're free to have an opinion, but you're also not free from the consequences of that opinion. So if someone then says, hey guys, that's hate speech, and takes action against you, then maybe you asked for that. Very interesting. Now, yes, a very good example is Andrew Tate, who has literally been recorded on podcasts saying about how he traffics and rapes girls, now suing people who are saying the same things on social media, that he traffics and rapes girls. So, yeah. Starters, don't do criminal things. And secondly, don't brag about it. And thirdly, if, now you're suffering the consequences of your so-called free speech. So, yeah, there's that.
Absolutely. Great lessons learnt there. Remember, what you do say cannot be taken back, especially if it's in a public forum and recorded. So my leaving comments today is that I have beautiful butterflies in my stomach, because it's not long now until the Harvest Her Power conference, so Empowering Women in Agriculture, which is happening here in Dubbo. It is a 2-day agricultural conference. It is like no other. It is designed specifically for the personal development of you, the woman behind the business. It's not a program that's going to talk about, cash flows and budgets. Gillian and I have told you on the podcast previously what we think of those programs. This is specifically for building your resilience and the key skills you need, especially when you are on the farm or on the land. But it is universal skills that will stretch across the agricultural industry, and especially if you are new to the industry, you're wanting to make connections, you're wanting to learn what some people classify as common sense that is not commonly taught, then come along to the conference. Tickets close Thursday 11:55 p.m. So I will put this, with the permission from Gillian, I will put this episode out on Thursday morning so that you can hear this reminder before they shut.
100%. It's going to be awesome. Haven't worked on my presentation yet, but that's nothing unusual. So it'll still be cool. And I just can't wait to meet everyone. That's what I really love. I love going places and meeting new people and listening to their stories. So that'll be really cool. And we get to go to the zoo.
We do get to go to the zoo, and it'll be fantastic to be in the same place at the same time, Gillian, because we are very rarely in the same place when we record. I think we've been in the same place once, maybe, in 25 episodes. That was just the camera falling. But anyway, thank you very much, guys, for another episode. We also want to thank, Gillian will probably put out a social trial, but we are truly over 2,000 downloads, and we are averaging 270 downloads every 30 days. So thank you very much, everybody. Remember to subscribe if you are listening on the video podcast on YouTube, or give us a 5-star rating where you listen to your podcast.
Oh, thanks very much, everyone. Bye.
Until next week. Thanks, guys.